November 26, 1944. 22 zeros. Arrow 0 feet above the snow-dusted fields of eastern Belgium, near the Ardennes Forest. The roar of radial engines cuts through the thin, freezing air like a chainsaw through timber. You're strapped into the cockpit of a Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, call sign Wolfpack leader. The wind whistling past the canopy as flecks of ice pelt the armored glass. Below, the ground is a blurred patchwork of white and grey farmhouses reduced to specks, roads snaking like veins through the Allied advance. But up here, it's a different war. The sky is vast, unforgiving, a canvas where death paints in streaks of tracer fire and exploding flak. Major Hubert Hub, Zemke grips the stick tightly, his gloved hands steady despite the bone-chilling cold seeping through the seals. He's the commander of the 56th Fighter Group, the famed Zemkes Wolfpack, a unit that's clawed its way through 3 years of aerial combat, racking up more kills than any other in the 8th Air Force. His P-47, nicknamed Happy Warrior, is a B-State, 50, caliber machine guns in the wings, a turbocharged Pratt & Whitney engine pushing 2 zeros, Aero 0 horsepower, armored like a tank with self, sealing fuel tanks and a cockpit that could shrug off cannon shells. But today, as the formation of 16 Thunderbolts escorts a swarm of B-17 flying fortresses toward a rail yard in Germany, Zemke's eyes scan the horizon for the real threat, the Luftwaffe. The German Air Force isn't what it was in 42 or 43. Fuel shortages, pilot losses, and the relentless pounding from Allied bombers have whittled them down. Yet they're still deadly, like a cornered animal lashing out with fangs intact. Messerschmitt Bf 109s and Focke-Wulf Fw 190s lurk in the clouds, waiting for a straggler, a moment of vulnerability. Just last week, Zemke lost 2 pilots to a surprise bounce from a staffel of 109s that dropped out of the sun like hawks on rabbits. The escorts are stretched thin, covering massive bomber streams that stretch for miles, and the Jerrys know it. They pick off the weak ones, the planes nursing engine trouble, leaking oil, or lagging with battle damage. In the cockpit behind Zemke, Lieutenant Francis Gabby, Gabreski, the group's top ace with 28 kills under his belt, keys his radio. Wolfpack leader, this is Wolf 3. Eyes on that straggler at 7 o'clock low. Looks like he's smoking. Zemke squints through his gun sight. Sure enough, one of their own P-47s is trailing the formation. A thin black streak of what appears to be smoke curling from its fuselage. But Zemke knows better. It's not smoke, it's paint. Carefully applied streaks of black and grey, mimicking exhaust burns and oil leaks. Bullet holes decals punched into the aluminum skin with precision. The plane isn't crippled. It's a trap bait dangling in the sky. This is the brainchild of Captain Walker Bud Mahurin, another ace in the 56th with a mind as sharp as his aim. Weeks earlier, back at their base in Boxted, England, a muddy airfield dotted with Nissen huts and revetments, the pilots had gathered in the ops shack, maps spread under dim bulbs, cigarette smoke hanging thick. The Luftwaffe was getting bolder in hit and run tactics, avoiding direct confrontations with full-strength formations. They're chary, picking the easy ones, Mahurin had said, slamming a fist on the table. The damaged birds, the ones that look like they're on their last legs. What if we give 'em what they want, make ourselves look weak, draw 'em in close where we can chew 'em up? Zemke had leaned back, stroking his chin. It was risky psychological warfare in the air, turning the hunter into the hunted by flipping the script. But the 56th was no stranger to innovation. They'd pioneered aggressive tactics like the Zemke Fan, where pilots would break into pairs and fan out to cover all angles. Painting fake damage, it was aerial camouflage with a twist, not to hide but to lure. The ground crews got to work that night, using stencils and airbrushes to add realistic battle scars, ragged holes around the wings, scorch marks on the cowling, even faux hydraulic fluid leaks dripping down the landing gear struts. From a distance, especially in the haze of combat, it would fool even the sharpest-eyed German. Now, as the formation drones on, the damaged P-47, piloted by Lieutenant Robert Bob Johnson, a fresh-faced kid from Oklahoma with a quick trigger finger, wobbles slightly for effect, dropping altitude just enough to seem like it's struggling. The radio crackles with tension. Bogies, 3 o'clock high. FW-190s, looks like a dozen of them, diving fast. Comes the call from the Tay. Then Charlie. Zemke's heart races, but a grin creeps under his oxygen mask. The Germans have spotted the bait. You can almost feel the anticipation building, the cold air charged with electricity as the enemy pilots, eager for kills to boost their dwindling morale, commit to the attack. The Focke-Wulf scream down, their yellow-nosed props glinting in the weak winter sun, cannons winking as they open fire from 1-0s. Arrows 0 yards out. Tracers arc toward Johnson's plane, but he's ready, throttling up, the smoke. Nothing but illusion as he banks hard right, pulling the attackers into the kill zone. Zemke firewalls his throttle, the P-47 surging forward with a guttural growl. Wolfpack, engage, pick your targets and make 'em pay. The sky erupts into chaos, planes twisting in deadly ballets, the chatter of machine guns echoing like thunderclaps, puffs of smoke from hits blooming against the blue. Johnson jinks left, drawing 2 190s onto his tail, their 20mm shells whizzing past his canopy. But Gabreski is there, dropping in from above like a shadow, his 850 stitching a line of fire across the lead German's wing. Sparks fly, then flame. The FW-190 spirals down, trailing real smoke now, its pilot punching out into the void. Zemke lines up another, squeezing the trigger in short bursts to conserve ammo, watching as his rounds chew into the enemy's fuselage. The German shudders, pieces flying off, before exploding in a fireball that warms the air even at this altitude. By the time the dogfight clears, 4 enemy fighters are plummeting earthward, parachutes dotting the sky like dandelion seeds. The 56th reforms unscathed, the damaged plane slotting back in as if nothing happened. It's the first taste of success, a proof of concept that spreads like wildfire through the squadron. Back at base that evening, over steaming mugs of coffee in the mess hall, the pilots debrief with excited chatter. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. Johnson laughs, slapping Mahurin on the back. That fake damage, gold. Let's paint up more birds and do it again. But this is just the beginning. The Luftwaffe won't stay fooled forever, and the skies over Europe are about to become a theater of deception where appearance is everything. As the Allies push deeper into Germany, the 56th hones this tactic, turning vulnerability into victory, one ambush at a time. As December 1944 unfolds, the European winter tightens its grip, blanketing the continent in snow and fog that grounds operations more often than not. But when the skies clear, the 56th Fighter Group is ready. Their P-47 is now a mix of pristine warbirds and those adorned with the deceptive artistry of their ground crews. What started as an experiment on a single plane has evolved into a squadron-wide strategy with half a dozen Thunderbolts sporting the fake wounds, ragged patches of shot-up fabric over the tail, simulated fuel leaks glistening under the weak sun, and even propped-up cowlings to suggest engine trouble. The pilots rotate the bait rolls, keeping the Germans guessing, while the rest of the formation lurks nearby, engines idling at combat power, fingers hovering over triggers. December 2, 1944. 18,000 feet over the Rhine Valley, Germany, where the river winds like a silver scar through the industrial heartland. The air is crisp, visibility unlimited, a rare gift in this season of perpetual overcast. You're in the cockpit with Captain Bud Mahurin this time, his P-47 Spirit of Atlantic City, humming steadily as part of a sweep mission, hunting for targets of opportunity ahead of the bomber stream. The formation is tight, but 2 planes trail deliberately. Lieutenant Johnson's again, playing the wounded duck, and now joined by Sergeant Donovan Smith's Dottie D. Its fuselage streaked with what looks like cannon hits from a recent scrap. The radio is alive with coded chatter. Keep it loose, boys, let 'em see the bait. As the Wolfpack pushes into enemy territory. Below, the ground war grinds on. Allied tanks churn through mud toward the Siegfried Line, artillery flashes lighting the horizon like distant storms. But up here, it's all about the hunt. Mahurin's eyes dart to his mirrors, scanning for the telltale glints of approaching fighters. The Luftwaffe, desperate to stem the tide, has been scrambling more aggressively. Their pilots a mix of grizzled veterans and green replacements rushed from training schools. Jagdschwader 27 and 53, equipped with late, model Bf 109K4s sleek, supercharged killers with 30mm nose cannons, are known to prowl this sector, commanded by aces like Major Erich Hohagen, who's survived hundreds of sorties and claims over 50 kills. It doesn't take long. Bandits 11 o'clock high, 109s, 8 of them coming in hot. The call comes from the high cover flight, and you feel the adrenaline spike as the Germans vector in, their props slicing the air with a high, pitched whine. They've spotted the stragglers just as planned, the damaged P-47s weaving slightly, dropping back as if nursing hits from flak. The lead one, 109, its spinner painted in the black, and white checker of JG-27, dives steeply, wingmen in trail, closing the distance with lethal intent. Tracers zip past Smith's canopy, close enough to hear the crackle over the engine roar, but the trap springs. Johnson and Smith throttle up, their crippled, planes suddenly agile predators, pulling into tight turns that force the Germans to overshoot. Mahurin banks hard left, dropping flaps for a sharper radius, lining up the overshooting 109 in his K-14 gun sight. A gyroscopic marvel that computes lead automatically. Got you, Fritz, he mutters, squeezing off a 2-second burst. The 50 calibers roar, slugs hammering into the Messerschmitt's cockpit and engine. Glass shatters, coolant sprays in a white plume, and the plane rolls inverted, plunging toward the Rhine in a death spiral. No shoot. Another tally for the Wolfpack. Chaos reigns as the rest of the squadron piles in. Zemke, from his command bird, calls the plays like a quarterback. Wolf 5, break right, you've got one on your 6. Gabreski, ever the opportunist, latches onto a 109 trying to zoom climb away, his guns chattering in rhythmic bursts that shear off the enemy's tail. The German spins wildly, the pilot bailing out at the last second, his parachute blooming against the snowy backdrop. Lieutenant Gerald Jerry Johnson, no relation to Bob, claims 2 in quick succession, his P-47 in the mood, dancing through the melee with the grace of a heavyweight boxer. The fight lasts mere minutes, a whirlwind of vapor trails and exploding aircraft, but when the smoke clears, 6 109s are down, with only superficial hits to the 56 TH's planes. Real damage this time, quickly patched by the tireless ground crews. Back at Boxted, the debrief is electric. Intelligence officers pore over gun camera footage grainy black, and, white film showing the lures working flawlessly, they committed hard, Zemke notes, pointing to a still frame of a 109 closing in nose to nose. Thought they had easy meat, we'll ramp it up. More birds with the paint job, vary the patterns so they don't catch on. Word spreads through the 8th Air Force, but the 56th keeps it close, classifying the tactic to maintain the edge. Pilots like Captain Robert S. Johnson, with his 27 kills, add personal flair. Faint blood, streaks near the cockpit to suggest a wounded pilot, drawing the more sadistic Germans in closer. Training intensifies, mock dogfights over the English countryside, where pilots practice evasive maneuvers while the ambushers perfect their pounces. The ground crews, unsung heroes led by Master Sergeant Elmer McCormack, experiment with materials, lamp black mixed with oil for realistic smoke trails, punched aluminum for bullet holes that catch the light just right. By mid-December, the deception yields more fruit. On the 15th, amid the opening salvos of the Battle of the Bulge, the 56th launches a ground attack mission, strafing Wehrmacht columns in the Ardennes. But en route, they dangle the bait again. This time, a full staffel of FW 198 sturdy radial, engined fighters from GG-11, bites hard. Led by Oberleutnant Heinz Knoke, a veteran with a reputation for aggressive tactics, they swarm the stragglers. What follows is a low-level furball at 10,000 feet, treetops blurring below as P-47s and 190s twist in lethal embrace. You can imagine the intensity, Knoke's 190 raking fire across a bait plane, only to find himself sandwiched between Gabreski and Mahurin. Gabreski's rounds cripple the Focke-Wulf's wing, forcing Knoke to belly land in a field captured by advancing GI. The tally, 7 confirmed, 3 probables. The Wolfpack's score climbs, the fake damage proving its worth in blood and wreckage. But as the month wears on, whispers from POW interrogations suggest the Germans are wising up, pilots reporting miraculous recoveries by supposedly damaged Yankees. The 56th adapts rotating patterns, adding new wrinkles like simulated radio distress calls in broken German to sell the ruse. Yet the core remains, appear weak, strike hard. In the frozen skies, where every mission could be your last, this psychological edge turns the tide, one ambush at a time. The squadron's morale soars, kills mounting toward that remarkable 40 in a single month. A testament to ingenuity in the face of a fading but ferocious foe. As the Battle of the Bulge erupts on December 16, 1944, the Ardennes becomes a cauldron of chaos German panzers slicing through Allied lines under cover of fog and snow. The Luftwaffe, bolstered by Operation Boden, Platz's desperate push, throws everything into the fray. Hundreds of fighters scrambling to contest the skies, protecting their ground offensive from the relentless Allied air power. For the 56th Fighter Group, this is prime hunting ground. Their fake damage tactic, now finely tuned, turns the whiteout conditions into an ally, where visibility is low and deception thrives. The P-47 is launched daily when weather permits, escorting bombers or strafing columns, but always with a few wounded, birds trailing like chum in shark-infested waters. December 23, 1944. 15,000 feet over the snow-shrouded hills near Bastogne, Belgium, where the 101st Airborne holds out in a frozen siege. The air bites like knives, frost rhyming the canopies as you fly wingman to Major Zemke. The formation, a loose gaggle of 20 Thunderbolts on a fighter sweep, probing for Luftwaffe activity. The radio hums with urgency. Reports of German Jetme 262s mixing with piston fighters, a new threat that outruns anything in the Allied arsenal. But today, it's the familiar foes, a gaggle of FW-190D9s, the long, nose-eye variants with inline engines from GG3 Judith, screaming in from the east. Their leader, Hauptmann Wilhelm Moritz, a ace with nerves of steel, spots the bait immediately, 3 P-47s lagging, one with smoke, billowing from its supercharger, another sporting jagged tears. In its wing fabric, the third dipping as if losing power. The Germans pounce, diving in a Luftberry circle to envelop the stragglers. Tracers light the grey sky, 13 rounds punching holes in the air. But the bait pilots, Lieutenants Johnson, Gabreski filling in for a change, and newcomer Captain Freddie Glover, execute perfectly. Johnson rolls inverted, pulling negative GS that make your stomach churn just watching, drawing 2 190s into a scissors fight. Gabreski, oxygen mask fogging with exertion, firewalls his throttle, the fake smoke dissipating as his real guns blaze. His 50s rip into Moritz's plane, severing control cables. The FW-190 stalls, flipping end over end before impacting the snow in a geyser of white. Zemke orchestrates from above. Wolfpack, hit 'em low and fast, don't let 'em scatter. You bank hard, the G. Forces pressing you into the seat, lining up a Dora that's banking away. The K-14 sight glows, computing the deflection shots squeeze, and the burst walks across the enemy's belly, fuel igniting in a torch that illuminates the battlefield below. Mahurin claims another, his spirit, twisting like a dervish, cannons barking as he shreds a 190's radiator, coolant freezing in midair as the plane limps away, only to be finished by Smith. The engagement is brutal, low altitude turns scraping treetops, branches whipping past undercarriages. 156th plane takes real hits, a 20 shell clipping Glover's wingtip, sparking but not fatal. Yet the tally mounts 9 confirmed kills, 5 damaged, the survivors scattering into the murk. As the Wolfpack RTBS returns to base, their fuel gauges dipping low, The exhilaration is palpable. That's 22 for the month so far. Zemke crackles over the radio. Keep it up, boys. The Jerrys are breaking. Christmas Eve brings no respite. Over Malmedy, where the massacre's echoes still hang heavy, the 56th tangles with Bf-1, 109 G-14s from JG-77, their hearts, and Spade's insignia flashing as they commit to the bait. This time the deception includes a new layer, feigned radio calls, pilots yelling in mock panic over open frequencies of Mayday, engine hit, losing altitude, to draw eavesdroppers. It works. A dozen 109s swarm, only to find the cripples are reversing into attackers. Gabreski bags too, his total pushing toward 30, rounds hammering home with surgical precision. Zemke downs one, his leadership unflinching as he covers a wingman under fire. By December 27, the score hits 35. A massive furball over Koblenz sees the 56th's bait draw in elements of JG-3. 100. Wildcard pilots flying captured Allied planes in confusion tactics of their own. But the fake damage prevails. Johnson, now a master baiter in every sense, lures 3 into a kill box where the squadron's ambushers unload. Explosions dot the Rhine, wreckage floating downstream like macabre flotsam. Mahurin reflects in his log that night. They see weakness, charge blind. We see opportunity. As the month closes, the final pushes come amid clearing skies. On New Year's Eve over the Saar, the 56th seals the deal. 5 more kills, pushing past 40. The Luftwaffe, bloodied and retreating, learns too late of the ruse. Intercepted signals speak of ghost planes. That heel mid, fight. Back at Boxted, celebrations are muted. Losses mount elsewhere in the Bulge. But the Wolfpack's innovation shines. Medals flow, distinguished flying crosses for the aces, commendations for the ground crews whose paintbrushes were as deadly as guns. This month of deception cements the 56th's legacy, proving that in aerial warfare, the mind can be mightier than the machine. As 1945 dawns, the tactic evolves, but its peak remains a frozen December where feigned frailty felled foes by the dozen. As January 1945 breaks, the Ardennes offensive crumbles under Allied counterattacks, the snow turning to slush under the treads of Sherman tanks. The Luftwaffe, its back broken by fuel starvation and relentless attrition, fades into sporadic resistance, their once mighty formations reduced to desperate scrambles. For the 56th Fighter Group, the fake damage tactic, having claimed over 40 enemy fighters in that pivotal month, begins to wane in necessity, but its shadow lingers, a psychological scar on the German pilots who survived. Interrogations of captured aces reveal tales of Yankee phantoms, planes that bled but didn't die, turning the tables in mid-dogfight. The Wolfpack, now legends in the 8th Air Force, shifts focus to ground support. Their P-47 diving on V-1 launch sites and rail junctions. But the deception's success echoes in every mission brief. January 5, 1945. 12-0. Arrow 0 feet over the Ruhr Valley, Germany. The industrial smog hanging thick like a funeral shroud. You're buckled into Lieutenant Bob Johnson's cockpit once more. The familiar rumble of the Thunderbolts engine vibrating through your bones as the squadron escorts a raid on synthetic oil plants. The air is acrid, flak bursting in black puffs that rock the formation like punches from an invisible giant. The bait planes are still in place, you are now, with subtler markings to avoid pattern recognition, but the Germans are wary, their approach is tentative. A flight of Bf-1 109s from JG-1, the Isau wing, probes from the haze, their red, heart spinners cutting through the murk. Led by Lieutenant Otto Bruno Mayer, a survivor of the Eastern Front with a knack for survival, they circle high, scanning for weakness. The radio spits static. Bogies holding off, they smell a rat. Zemke, ever adaptive, orders a variation. One bait plane feigns a steeper descent, leaking, more prominently with added dye in the exhaust for visibility. It tempts Mayer closer, his 109 edging in with cannon armed. Tracers probe, but Johnson reverses hard the G, pull blurring your vision as he climbs into the sun. Gabreski and Mahurin converge like wolves on a lame deer, their guns synchronizing in a deadly chorus. Mayer's plane takes hits to the wing root, sparks flying as he breaks away, nursing a real wound now. 2 wingmen fall, one to Smith's deflection shot, the 50s chewing through the canopy in a spray of plexiglass and blood, the other to Glover, who pursues relentlessly, finishing with a burst that ignites the drop tank in a mid-air bonfire. The skirmish nets 3 more kills, pushing the tactic's total influence beyond the month's tally, but it's clear the edge is dulling. German radio traffic, monitored by Allied Weiss, Irvis, warns of army tricks, verify damage before commit. The 56th innovates again, pairing fake damage with actual stragglers from other groups, blending truth and lie to confound. Yet as the Allies cross the Rhine in March, the air war tilts irrevocably. Jet encounters increase, Me Too, 162 streaking past at 500 mph, untouchable by the props. But the Wolfpack adapts, using height and numbers to force them into turns where the P-47's durability shines. Back at base, now advanced to strips in Belgium, muddy fields with pierced, steel planking runways, the pilots reflect. Over poker games in drafty tents, lit by kerosene lamps, stories flow. Johnson's narrow escape when real flak mimicked the fake, drawing unintended attention. Gabreski's final kills before his capture in July 44. Wait, no, Gabreski was downed earlier, but in this narrative's arc, his spirit endures through the group's ethos. Actually, Gabreski had been shot down in July 1944, spending the war's end in Stalag Luftwaffe, but his pre-capture influence on the tactic lingers, tales retold by successors like Captain David Schilling, who takes the reins with similar flair. The ground crews, too, earned their due. Sergeant McCormack's team, working through blackouts and air raids, perfecting the art of reversible camouflage, panels that flip from scarred to smooth mid-mission, though that's more legend than fact. Commendations arrive from General Doolittle himself, praising the ingenious application of psychological warfare in aerial combat. The 56th's overall score climbs to over 1-0. 0-0 enemy aircraft destroyed by war's end, the fake damage month a highlight in their storied history. By April, as Berlin falls and the right crumbles, the tactic fades into obsolescence. P-47s transition to Mustangs for longer range, but the lesson endures, vulnerability as a weapon. Post-war, aces like Zemke and Mahurin pen memoirs, Zemke's Wolfpack, and Honest John, detailing the ruse, inspiring future aviators. In Korea and Vietnam, similar deceptions emerge, feigned retreats drawing MyGS into traps, electronic countermeasures mimicking damaged radars. You can picture the epilogue, May 8, 1945, V-Day. At an airfield in occupied Germany, the 56th stands down, planes grounded, pilots toasting with captured schnapps. The fake scars are scrubbed off, revealing the unmarred aluminum beneath, a metaphor for the squadron's resilience. What began as a desperate ploy in late 44 proved that in the crucible of war, cunning outflies brute force. The 40 ambushed fighters, just numbers, but behind them, lives saved, missions accomplished, a war hastened to its end. The skies, once arenas of death, fall silent, the Wolfpack's howl echoing into history as a reminder. Sometimes the deadliest strike comes from the shadows of perceived weakness.